So as I said, good afternoon, and we'll just share our screen so that we can begin with the session essentially. Yeah. Okay. Um, Hello, everybody. I think I see familiar names over here. Just in case this is your first session, or for those of you who see the recording of these sessions, so if it is the first session that you are witnessing, this is basically an interactive session for the doubts that you may have. So, in the discussion forum, we also saw that some of you wanted to post your doubts during the sessions. Along with Sir, I think you need to post the sessions that Sir is hosting himself. You need to post the doubts in prior so that like he can take up those doubts, because that is how that platform is basically built, right? Over here, however, since I am hosting on Teams and you are not added to my team, you are basically external participants that are attending these meetings. So that is why even if I enable, the section wherein you can post doubts, you will essentially not be able to see that, right? Because I enable it, but since you are not added via Teams, and it is a via a link that you are joining, so you cannot really access that. Instead, like as I always say, at the end of the session or even during, if you get a doubt, you can always raise a hand, and you can unmute after that, like and you can ask your doubt, right? It is basically an interaction session. So I will try to clarify your doubt. If I am unable to, I can go back, check that with Sir, and give you a better explanation maybe next time. Okay. So that was regarding how doubts have to be dealt with basically in this course, or in this format of learning. Apart from that, yeah, so my introduction, again, for people who are new to the course and to these kinds of lectures, I am Arveen Kaur. I am basically a PhD scholar at IIT Kanpur. I am also a part of Professor Ganesh's lab. So Professor Ganesh is your instructor for this course, that is Introduction to Professional Scientific Communication. We ourselves, as PhD scholars, have gone through this course in our first year, and so I have taken this course myself. I have some understanding regarding that, and I have also been the TA for this course for the past 2 years. Uh, so yes, if you have any doubts, maybe I can help, clarify that. Apart from that, yes, this is a collaboration between NPTEL and Prime Minister's Research Scholarship, right? Which is why I am basically conducting this live session. Uh, okay. So as for the session by itself, what we are going to deal with is basically a few key points that have been taught to you in this week's lectures, that is week 3 lectures, wherein essentially it was talked about like abstract was talked about last week, right? That was picked up again this week, and then there were some essential other parts of writing, scientific writing, that were explained to you. Main emphasis was laid on introduction and methodology, and title, right? So, title was a key player. After that, methodology, I think. So that is what we are going to discuss upon. Also, we have certain that is going to be the second part of today's lecture, wherein Basically, I have picked up one recent papers from 2021 from Nature Behavior, and that talks about how to write an effective title, which is basically a recapitulation of what Sir has also taught you. So we'll go through that paper. We'll understand how these, high-end journals also suggest in multiple of their editions how to, write a good title. Before that, what we are going to do is we are going to look at the previous year's assignment for the past 2 years. Along with that, in between, there are some additional questions that were similar to these, assignments that have also been posed during this lecture, right? So that is the part we are going to begin with. Yeah. Uh, so how I'll go about it is I'll read a question, I'll read you the options. I'll give you some time to ponder upon what the answer could be. Then we can discuss the answer, and if there is any logic that is linked to that answer, we can discuss upon that logic so that it will, help you understand the entire concept. So, question number one is, which of the following is an important factor to consider when writing a good materials and methods section? Right? Is it good experimental design, or full details of statistical tests performed, or full details of materials used in the study, or all of these? Okay, so I think since materials and methods was towards the end of this week's lecture, week three lectures, if you all have already gone through it, it will be fresh in your memory. If you have not reached it as yet, the answer for this particular one is all of these, right? So, yes, when you are explaining your materials and methods or when you're writing about it, you do want to keep in mind that your experimental design was good, right? There was no flaws per se in your experiment or flaws that would bring about obvious questions by somebody, right? For instance, if you are saying that in one of your experiments, like all throughout your study, there were three groups. One was a control group. One was a control group that had a vehicle treatment, and one was a disease group. The fourth group, okay, four groups. Fourth group was a uh, disease group with treatment, right? So if your study is basically talking about a treatment, right? A treatment that you are injecting into an individual, right? So that is essential that you keep the control group, which also has injections of a vehicle, right? Vehicle meaning if your drug is soluble in water or DMSO, for instance, that person will get injections that only have water or DMSO or saline, right? Without the drug. And this person, which is a treated person, will have injections with the drug dissolved in that particular material, right? Why is that important? Because uh, in case of animals, if you are giving repeated injections, right? Injections might itself cause some kind of stress, right? That itself can bring some kind of a variation. So if you're keeping a group that is a control group without any injections, while a diseased group with injections, it itself has so many variables that are different between them. So you also want to introduce one control group that had injections given to it for like 60 days. But all those injections did not have drugs. It just had water or saline or whatever, right? So that variable is normalized, right? So such kind of experimental plans you have to have in mind, right? So if there is a very obvious question that comes up that throughout your paper you talk about the drug treatment, and in your materials and methods what you have said is that we have compared basically diseased and treated with the control, right? And control received no treatment at all, right? Not even a pseudo treatment or not even a vehicle. It did not receive any treatment at all, right? So that will raise very obvious questions. whether the differences that you are listing is solely because of the drug, or it is because of this additional stress that was put on, or it was because of that DMSO in that injection, or because of the saline in that injection. Was it because of that? So you have to be very, very mindful and very, very careful about your experimental design, right? Also, you have to put full details of your statistical tests, whether which groups are you comparing, right? What is the statistical test that you're using to compare these groups? You have to give a full disclosure of the materials that you are using in your study, so that if somebody else in some other part of the world is trying to repeat that experiment or similar kind of experiment, they have awareness about, okay, they might have had a different kind of DMSO that was present in their lab, which might not have been working. So they'll come back and check, okay, which is a specific kind that this person used. Okay, well, once I use this, let me see if that works out. And it might work out for them, right? There are some very slight differences in chemical compositions that arise sometimes, right? And they can make huge, huge differences. So, question number two is, the majority of papers published in scientific journals contain a section titled Acknowledgements, okay, in which the authors recognize the contributions of individuals or organizations. Which of the following characteristics should not ideally be included in acknowledgement section? So this is actually something you are going to learn in week 4 lectures, but uh, last to last year, it was a part of week 3. That is why it was included as week 3 assessment. So the options for this one is, the sponsor who funded the research project should not be included, or an expert who read through the manuscript and provide critical input on the content, or a colleague who shared some research reagents for the study being written, or a friend of an author who helped him financially during his elementary school days, right? So, what do you think? Like, even though you might not have come across these lectures till now, or maybe you have already, skipped ahead, looked at these lectures. Uh, so, what is your general understanding? Like, what do you think should be the answer to this one? So it is going to be the fourth one, that is the friend of an author who helped him financially during his elementary school days. So the point to note over here is, if you look at all the other three, they are directly correlated with the research that is being published, right? So it is not like this friend, the author should not be grateful to this friend, but this friend has not really contributed directly to his work, right? Neither have the friend's parents, for instance, right? But that sometimes you can still come across in certain acknowledgements. But a sponsor who funded the research is a very key acknowledgement, right? You have to acknowledge the funding agency, right? Without them, definitely your research wouldn't have been possible. Right, because you wouldn't have to been able to buy the reagents, the resources required for this research to have occurred, or an expert who read through the manuscript and provided critical input on the content, right? That is also very important, right? You acknowledge your reviewers, you acknowledge the people that review your thesis, right? Because there might be, sometimes it happens, right? There might be some thing that you overlooked, which this reviewer, because he is or she is looking at it from a very fresh perspective, and from somebody who has not really been indulged in this research, from an outside fresh perspective you are getting, and they basically suggest something that might be very key to your research, right? A very short simple study that could enhance your research to uh, another level, right? Or it could validate your results, like you might not have thought by yourself, right? Or a colleague who shared some research grants for the study being written, right? So you might have come across studies wherein people they acknowledge that okay, this is the cell lines that we used. This cell line was gifted to us by this individual. This cell line was gifted to us by this individual. These strain of mice was a gift from this person. Like these kinds of acknowledgements are given, right? Or this particular person lended or extended us their SEM facility so that we could perform this experiment that was also published in this paper, something like that. Okay. Yeah. So which one of the following options must be considered while writing any type of research proposal, right? Option A is clearly defining the objectives of the proposal. Option B is detailing the results. Option C is societal impact of the proposal, or option D, that is financial rewards. Right? So which of the following should definitely be considered? So this might have certain confusing options for certain people at least. So I would, suggest that you read all the options thoroughly. Then you can make an informed choice. Yeah. So the answer for this one is clearly defining the objectives of the proposal, right? Why is this more important? Are the other things not relevant at all? Yes, other things might be relevant, but you have to pick the one that is going to be the most relevant, right? Over here, which part of the research is being talked about? The research proposal is being talked about, right? Once you're talking about the research proposal, you anyway do not have to detail about the results, right? That comes as a part of a progress report, right? It is not a part of a proposal, right? You might have some preliminary results to support your proposal, but that doesn't mean detailing results, right? Because essentially, a proposal is written at the beginning of a research, right? Then societal impact of the proposal. Now that is another key is of also of key importance over here, because yes, while you are pitching something to an individual or to a funding agency, you want to tell what is going to be the impact of your research to the society, right? But even more so than that, you clearly have to define the objectives of the proposal, right? If you define the objectives nicely, that itself might be able to, push the impact of the proposal, right? So, for instance, you want to say that these are your major concerns regarding this particular research area, right? These are the things that have not been studied at all, or these are the things that require a lot of diligent research, right? And this is what I am aiming at, right? Also, this is what I'm aiming at, and I will do this one, two, and three as a broad, experiments under these three subcategories to, find some answers to this open question, right? As an impact of this, I feel that people in India or people in the world who are suffering from this disease or this disorder might get impacted, right? That is secondary. But first, you have to list or clearly define your objectives of the proposal, right? Financial rewards definitely is not a part of the research proposal, right? It comes only at the very end if your proposal is more about research and development or infrastructure related to research, right? Then you will talk about what is the kind of finance you need for this kind of setup, this, that, right? But first, you need to define why you need that kind of a setup, right? So that will come when you clearly define the objectives. Okay. Which of the following is the correct order for writing a research article, and what is the acronym for the way of writing? right? So acronym you can go through yourself. Option A is method, introduction, discussion and results. B is introduction, method, result and discussion. C is introduction, result, method and discussion, or D, that is method, discussion, results and introduction. So which out of these do you think is the best way to write your proposal, to write a research article? Okay. So, the best way of writing a research article basically is first to start with the introduction, because that is something that you are definitely going to be familiar with, right? First go with introduction, then you describe what is the methods you have done, because this is going to be a relatively simpler section to write, the methods, right? So a lot of people, they also believe that methods is the correct way of starting to write your research, which is also true. But we will come to why we have not selected one of those options, right? So first we are saying that introduction, because you know your research question, you have studied literature about what are the gaps of the studies that have already been conducted, what are the lacunae, the critiques of such kinds of studies, and what is the need of the hour, right? To be, or what has to be focused upon, right? So that you can explain very nicely in an introduction. Then you come to the method section, right? Once you come to the method section, what you are now dealing with is how you have performed experiments, right? So you just have to, you know, the experiments that you have performed, you have to pick up those experiments, the protocols that you have used, and you need to put it on a piece of paper in, a passive voice. That is what is going to be the methods, right? Then come the results, right? So results again are very important. This is where you will be reporting whatever data you have, whatever observation you get out of that data, and then discussion, wherein you will be discussing that if you had this data, and if this is the observation that you could draw out of that data, then you think that this might be the case, this is why this is. You cite more literature to support your data. You cite, there is another kind of literature survey that goes on to, help support your data in your discussion. And then you extrapolate these conclusions, right? Or these observations, you are extrapolating it to, again, benefit that area per se, right? Uh, as I said, people often are confused by methods being the first, section in the order of writing. That could be true. But if you look at both these, right, both these options that had methods before any other section, what do you see? A says methods, then introduction, which could be the case, then discussion, then result, right? So, unless and until you report your results, there is no discussion to write about, right? Unless and until you are presenting that this is where my data goes, after this data goes, after this data goes, right? There is nothing to build up in this discussion, right? Similar is this case in the in option D, wherein methods goes first, then comes discussion, and then results. Again, this is an incorrect order, right? Unless and until you have all the graphs in order, unless and until you have all the images in order, how would you know in what way you have to write your discussion? In what is going to be the flow of the discussion? You will not know about it, right? So thus option B is actually the correct option. Then uh, question number 5. Anyone writing their first research paper will find the assignment intimidating and more difficult than the actual work. One advice frequently given to beginners is to begin writing simpler sections of the research paper rather than adhering to the exact order of the research paper. Identify the option that indicates the easier section to write first, right? Is it the introduction or the methods or results or discussion? Which one is going to be the easier section to write for beginners, right? So I think we just discussed about that. Um, there has been an entire lecture that has been dedicated talking about this. So I hope you can recall that. Yeah. So the answer for this one is methods, right? So method over here, what you are doing is you don't need to do any, major literature survey over here. You need to pick up the protocols that you will already have somewhere, already written them somewhere because you have been following the same protocol. So you'll have it in your protocol call notebook, right? You just have to pick up that protocol, form it into a good sentence, make it into a passive voice, make it into a detailed method if it is something that you are reporting for the first time or it is not that frequently done, or you have made some tweaks to the previously, prevailing protocol, right? You write it in detail. Otherwise, you find, the paper that you picked up the protocol from and the one that you had been following, you just, reference that paper, briefly explain that protocol that had already been explained by that particular reference in detail and you just move ahead, right? So it is one of the easier sections to write in a paper. Then come to question number 6, which says journals often ask the authors to provide keywords for the research papers. The reason being, keywords help the journals to rank research papers, or keywords help in indexing papers for an easy search, or better keywords increase the impact factor of the journal, or all of these. So I hope you have come across scientific journals and scientific, articles, and I hope that you have used keywords to, you know, okay, I am just giving away the answer. Just go through the question and we'll discuss. Okay. So the answer for this one is that the keywords help in indexing papers for easy search, right? So what I was going to say earlier was that I hope that you guys have typed in keywords and the papers, or even in normal Google search, all you give sometimes. All you give sometimes is some specific keywords, right? Based on that, they will find what is relevant and they are going to show that to you, right? And that is what these keywords essentially are for, right? So once you are writing your research paper or a research article or a review article, what you need to be very careful with is what is the major point of your article, what is the major things that it discusses about, and how will people be able to find it, right? So unless and until a person knows you or has come across that same paper title somewhere else, how are they going to type in the title of that paper and search for it, right? So all sometimes even if I know a person professionally, like another researcher, and I want to go and reference some of their paper, right? I might not remember the title of the paper, but I might remember, okay, it had something to do with some kind of a pesticide, and they were checking, its impact in, neuronal cell lines, something like that. So maybe I will just type some keywords and that paper might show up, right? So that is what keywords essentially are for, right? To reference or index papers for easy searches. Then question number 7, which of the following is the most read section of a research article, right? Is it a title or an abstract or material and methods or results? So the answer for this is title, of course. So title has 100% readability, right? So anybody who is, looking for research articles or has given certain keywords and is trying to shortlist what articles the person might find relevant for their study, they will definitely read the title, right? That is the first level of filter that a person will put, right? After giving in keywords, whatever the search engine is going to give them back, the first thing the people will do is read the titles. Okay, this one looks relevant, this one doesn't look relevant, this one doesn't look relevant. So I'll open all the ones that look relevant to me in a separate tab, and then I will go about reading their abstract, right? Whether it makes sense, whether this is the kind of study I was looking for. Okay, that is going to be my filter number two, right? So the most read section of a research article is going to be a title, right? Remember that it has 100% readability. Then question number 8, during the submission process for research articles, publications will frequently request extensive methodology sections as part of the article. The reasons for this are as follows. Knowledgeable in the approach that was taken, to give other researchers an opportunity to repeat the experiment and reproduce the findings, to recommend the use of particular instruments or chemicals that were used in the investigation, or all of these. I think the first option should be to check whether the author is knowledgeable in the approach that was taken, right? Uh, so please go through the question and try to decipher what the answer is. Okay. So the answer for this one is option B, that is to give other researchers the opportunity to repeat similar experiments and reproduce the findings, right? So that is why your methodology has to be very detailed, right? There might be some tweak that you might have done that made your experiment work, and that might not be the normal protocol. If you just reference somebody that this is a protocol I used without mentioning the tweak that you did in that protocol, somebody might follow that protocol, it might not work out for them, and they might think that okay, your experiment is definitely not reproducible, so they will not trust your results also, right? uh the other options are definitely untrue. uh, your knowledge is not being tested based on the methodology of the paper, and it is definitely not done to recommend use of a particular chemical. It is done so that somebody can check whether if for instance I had a chemical A and I was using that chemical to perform an experiment, and you had the same chemical A from a different company, and you were also using that to perform the same experiment, and we were getting different results, or you were not getting any result at all, right? It might be because the specificity of my chemical A was more than the specificity of your chemical A, right? So I will suggest that you also buy chemical A from the same company that I had, to check whether that is the case, or whether there is some other problem in the protocol, or some other difference in the protocol essentially that is coming between our protocols, right? So it will help test that, right? So coming to question number 9, assume that the objective of your thesis project was to determine whether or not the substance XYZ helps people with dementia improve their memory and their ability to learn new things. The study is a randomized clinical trial, and it involves 900 individuals belonging to a range of Asian nations. The title of the study is Effect of XYZ patients on patients suffering from, Effect of XYZ on patients suffering from dementia in Asian countries. Which one of the following option represents a better keyword combination for the research paper? Right. So over here, your research has been, the objective of your research has been defined. and then the title of the paper has been listed. Now you need to find which out of these is a better combination of keywords, right? Option A, that is XYZ, dementia and memory. Option B, that is memory, randomized trial and learning ability. Option C is XYZ, Asian countries and dementia, or D, that is all of these. Right? So please go through the question once, try to see which is going to be the best keyword combination. Yeah. So the answer for this is going to be B, that is memory, randomized trial, and learning ability. Now, why do we say this is a better keyword combination? Is because the best keywords are the ones that are already not repeated from what is present in the title itself, right? So the title already has XYZ, the name of the drug, right? So over here, the other two options also have XYZ written over here, right? Then it all already has knowledge that these are Asian patients from Asian countries, right? That is also already written in the title itself, and that they are dementia patients, which is also written, right? Memory is the only new keyword other than that in these two options. While in option B, there are newer keywords such as memory, it being a randomized trial, and that it is basically aimed to improve learning ability, not to reverse the dementia, but to improve their learning ability, right? So this one is actually going to be the correct answer. Then question number 10, which is the following are the sections that are typically included in a research paper. That is introduction, methods, results, and discussion. Which one of the following option currently represents popular sequence of writing the four sections of a paper, however, which may not be the actual order of the final manuscript, right? So your options are methods, results, introduction and discussion, results, discussion, introduction and methods, discussion, results, methods and introduction, or introduction, methods, results and discussion, right? So, I think we have just discussed this while back. So the option for this one, sorry, the answer for this one is going to be methods, results, then introduction, then discussion. Right? So why is it different from one of the previous answers? I had explained it to you over there itself, right? Generally, what is advised is that the best or the easier section to write first is methods. So that is why it is written over here that methods comes first. Then you basically have your results, right? You have your data. So it is then easier that you arrange your data, which is what is going to go where, right? So then you start writing your results. So there then comes results. Then you write your introduction because you are well aware of kind of question you had in mind when you started, right? So after this, you frame your introduction, you do a lot of literature survey, and you write a good introduction. Then finally, you bring it all together. You know, what's the question you had? What is the experiment you did? What is the observation you got? Like, what is the conclusion you want to make out of it? What is the research or the studies that have suggested that these kinds of outcomes might come, or that support your outcome, or that validate your study, right? That is all what you are going to include in discussion. Yeah. So, which one of the following should be the last section written when writing a research paper? Is it the title or the abstract or the materials and methods or the results? So, which out of these will be the last section written when writing a research paper? Okay, it is another easy question, right? So it will be the title, right? Uh, Title will obviously be the last section when you have written the entire research paper. You know what is the what is that in one line, what is it that you want to be conveyed through your research, right? You are more clear upon that once you have written the entire paper, right? So that one line you will try to shorten it and you will try to make it the title of your paper, right? Title should actually be the last section that should be written when you are writing a research paper. So it is a modification of the same question. The question is actually the same. The options is what are different. So which of the following should be the last section of written when writing a research paper? What will be the answer if these were your options? Discussion, abstract, materials and methods, or results? Sorry. So in this case, your answer would be abstract, right? Because again, abstract is going to, capture the essence of your entire paper in just one paragraph, right? So whatever, what was the thought that made you begin this research, right? What is the kind of literature that is already prevailing? What is the critique or the knowledge gap you found in these kinds of research? What is it that you were proposing for your research? What is the hypothesis that you have for your research? What is the main kind of study that you did in order to prove your hypothesis? What is going to be the conclusion of your result of your research, right? All this you have to mention in your abstract, right? For that, you should have written everything else so that you can sum it up at the last, right? Then we have question number 12, which says, sorry, from what we have learned through one of the papers from week 3 lectures, which one of the following statement is untrue? Right? Is it number of citations positively correlates to the length of the title, or number of citations negatively correlates with the presence of acronyms, or number of citations positively correlates with the presence of colon? So there was one of the papers that sir had discussed. What is, the take home message that is correct, or that, oh, sorry, that is untrue from all of the among these examples that are given, which is an untrue statement that was, arrived at after having discussed that paper. Um, so I hope you guys have gone through the lectures, and I hope you are now aware of which paper we are talking about over here, right? Or just you don't really have to remember the paper. You just have to remember what is the the uh, sum that came out of discussing that paper, right? What was the output of it? So, which of these is false? Number of citation positively correlates to length of the title. Number of citation negatively correlates with presence of acronyms. Number of citation positively correlates with the presence of a colon. The incorrect option is number of a citations negatively correlates with presence of acronyms, right? So this is something that was not discussed with you, that acronyms basically will uh, sorry, if you have used acronyms in your research paper or in the title of your research paper, it will basically lead to lesser number of citations, is what has not been taught to you, right? It was not, the outcome of that study that that paper had done, right? What they had reported, on the other hand, was that yes, it will positively correlate to the length of your title. So, if it should not be very extremely long, but it should not be very extremely short also, right? A number of citation will positively correlate with the presence of a colon, was what was also explained to you through that paper. Right? Which of the following sections of a research paper is written in a passive voice? Is it the introduction or the abstract or the materials and methods or the results? Now, this is again something that even if you had missed in the lecture, today, like in the past half an hour or so, also, I have discussed it multiple times. Like at least more than twice, I have said the answer to this question. Okay. So the answer to this question is actually going to be materials and methods, right? So that is the one section that is written in passive voice. So whenever you are writing results or discussion, you will write, this is the experiment that I have done. This is the outcome that I have gotten. This is what I conclude from this outcome. But when you are writing materials and methods, what you will write is that this was the animal that was taken for the study after, these many number of days, or it was raised for these many months. After that, it was euthanized and the organs were used for this purpose, right? The staining was done as follows. This was how this particular imaging was done. This is for analysis. XYZ method of analysis was used. It was then correlated to this particular aspect, etc. Right? So everything is written in a passive voice when it comes to the materials and methods section, right? Then question number 14. An effective title should convey main topics of the study, be attractive, highlight the importance of research, or all of these. Again, a simple question. The answer is all of these, right? Even if it is not attractive, it will do. But the other 2 points are very, very key, right? It should definitely convey the main topics of the study. Also, it should highlight the importance of research, right? So those two are very, very key points, right? Then, which one of these words most accurately defines an abstract? Is it a quotation or a brief introduction or a synopsis or a bibliography? So I hope you are aware of these terms, right? In order for you to be able to answer this particular question, I hope that you are aware of what a quotation is, what is a brief introduction, what is synopsis, what is bibliography. So if you are, please pick the correct option. Otherwise, we are going to discuss it shortly, right? Okay. So synopsis is what most accurately defines an abstract, right? So quotation will basically be a short excerpt from the study, right? Brief introduction will just be that a build up to the study. It will not discuss what the study is actually about, what has been done, what is a conclusion. It will just, as the name suggests, be an introduction, right? Synopsis, however, is the complete conclusion kind of not a conclusion per se. It is like a summary, right? It synopsis is like a summary of whatever is being talked about, and bibliography is a collection of all the references or all the citations, like where everything was, uh, you know, taken from. That is the collection of citations or references is what is known as bibliography. Then, which one of these is the last stage of research process, right? Is it research structuring or review of literature or report writing or analysis of the data? Okay. So the correct answer to this one is report writing, right? You will definitely have to structure your research much before the actual writing process comes, right? So if you have started doing your research, you have started, getting some results, you will need to structure your future experiments in a way that do experiments to basically answer some questions. You are not randomly doing experiments that might not even be relevant to your research, right? So research structuring comes much earlier on. So does review of literature. So how are you going to come upon a research topic, right? How are you going to decide what you are going to work on? For that itself, you need to, do a thorough review of literature, right? uh, Once the experiments are done, you analyze your data, right? So that comes later on. But data analysis is also done much before report writing itself, right? So you do an experiment, you analyze the data. Based on that data, you might come up with another set of experiments. You do those, you analyze the data. So unless and until you are analyzing your data, just the output of your results sometime will not, be very indicative of what is happening or what was the change that was seen in this experiment or whether there was any change that was seen in this experiment, right? So you do need to analyze your data as and when you have done your work, actual experiment, right? The last thing that you come to doing is writing a report, right? Whether it's a progress report or a research paper or a thesis, etc. Right? Then who first reads your research paper, right? Is it your guide or your PI or the reviewer or other researchers working in similar areas or the editor? So it was just a general question that we have put. It was not a part of your assessment. It is just to, extend your knowledge. So who will be the first person who is going to read your paper? So after you, of course, who has written that paper, your guide will be the first one who will, read and review your paper, right? There will be some changes that will come from your guide's end. Then it will go to basically the editor, right? If the editor deems it fine, it will go to reviewers. There will be some changes that will come from the reviewers and themselves, right? You will modify that again, your guide will read it again, it will go through the same process. Once you have satisfied all the queries and doubts that your reviewers had, will it finally get published and will the other researchers that are working in similar areas finally read those papers, right? Then question number 18, which is an abstract contains which one of these? A brief summary of research points, a brief analysis of data, a brief summary of findings of the report, or a brief interpretation of the data. So this one might be a little tricky. Okay. So the abstract will basically contain a brief summary of findings of the report, right? It will not have analysis of data per se, right? It will not have a summary of research problem per se, and it will not have interpretation of the data, right? What it will have is what was the question and what was the answer to that question. So brief summary of the findings of the report, right? That is what is going to be um, what your abstract is going to contain, right? So question number 19. Which section of a typical research paper has the highest readership? So we have just discussed it a while back. There is one of the sections that are given in the options that has actually 100% readership. Is it the title or the abstract or the results or the discussion? Which one has highest readership? So since we have already discussed it, you do know, right, that it is a title, right? So title has 100% readership. And from this, you will also understand that this is a recurring question, right? So these are questions that what else will you ask out of this, right? These are going to be recurring questions. Maybe even similar questions have been asked to you in this particular assessment itself, right? So they can help you prepare very well for your exams as well, right? So these are simpler questions, for instance, not very confusing. Options are given. You know what the answer is going to be, right? Then question number 20. Which of the following hypothesis is experimentally testable, right? A, love is the most powerful force in the universe. B, increasing the amount of sunlight will improve plant growth. C, humans use only 10% of their brain capacity. Or D, dreams can predict the future, right? So go through the question and the options very carefully and try to understand which one is the correct answer. Okay, just give me a short moment. So the answer to this one, which of these is going to be an experimentally testable hypothesis, is actually option B, right? So this is possible, and this is a there are possible experiments that you can do to prove this hypothesis, right? So what is a hypothesis, or what is the question is increasing the amount of sunlight will improve plant growth, right? It is possible to test it and to treat it, right? So you can take several different kinds of plants, that are used to different kinds of conditions. You can start with them not getting sunlight at all. So there will be one group of plants that will not get sunlight at all. One group that will get maybe sunlight 10% of the time. Another that will get it 20% of the time. Similarly, increasing the amount of sunlight, you will have multiple groups, right? Multiple plant systems. And the same groups, you will have multiples of it, and those individually will, some will get sunlight for 10% of the time, some will get for 20% of the time, reaching up to 100% sunlight, right? So that will help us, test this hypothesis perfectly, whether increasing the amount of sunlight will actually improve plant growth, right? While option A, C, and D are statements that cannot actually be tested, right? Love is the most powerful force in the universe. Can it be tested? How will we find out, whether it is the most powerful force? Can we ask it to lift, say, a crane? Right? Or can we ask it to build a 20-story skyscraper in one day? No, we can't do that, right? Because it is intangible, right? So that is something that is not testable. Similarly, for option C, that is humans use only 10% of their brain capacity, right? So, through the volume and through the ridges of the cerebellum that we have, cerebrum, the ridges that are going, the sulci and the gyri in the brain, we can determine the rough value of rough volume of the brain, right? So we know the brain capacity, but how can we say that humans are using only 10% of their brain capacity, right? How can we quantify like what exactly is your brain capacity and what you are using, right? Can we quantify that? No. Then dreams can predict the future. Is that possible? So somebody might think they have very realistic dreams, but can that be scientifically correlated to predicting the future? I don't think so, right? So these other three are not experimentally testable, is why option B is actually the correct answer, right? Because this is the only option that can be experimentally tested, and the others are difficult to test. So, question number 21. Which one of the following options should not be in the methods section of a research paper, right? Is it stating the intent of the study, or mentioning the source of chemicals used, or citing original references, or use of the past tense, right? So, which of these should not be a part of the method section is what is being asked over here. So the option for this one is stating the intent of the study, right? So in the method section, does anybody, want to tell why we are doing the study? No, that is what the introduction is for, right? So, methods does not require that clarification of anybody having to, state what is going to be the intent of the study that is being performed, right? But we do need to mention where the chemicals have come from, what is the chemicals we are using. We need to cite references from where we have, uh, seen how to do a specific experiment, and people who we are following for that particular kind of study, right? And use of past tense because it is going to be written in a passive voice, right? This was done, right? These reagents were used. So that is what the tense is going to be. Intent or objective of the study is not included in the methods, while the rest of the options are included, like we discussed. Then we come to question number 22, which is a group of students was working on a research project that aimed to test whether the drug ZE45 improves the learning ability of patients suffering from Alzheimer's disease, a neurological disorder. It was a randomized controlled trial and included 20,000 patients from 12 different countries. The title of the paper is Efficacy of ZE45 Medication in Treating Alzheimer's Disease. Which one of the following options represents a better keyword combination for research paper? So, similar kind of question you have done before, I hope. If you were not you had not guessed the answer to that one correctly, at least this one you will be able to solve, flawlessly. So your options are ZE45 learning ability and Alzheimer's disease, or neurological disorder, randomized control trial and therapeutics, or ZE45 case control study and treatment, or any of these. So which is the best possible or better keyword combination out of the ones that have been listed over here? Okay. So option B again is the correct answer, which says neurological disorder, randomized control trial, and therapeutics, because ZD5 is that is a medication. It has already been listed in the title itself. Alzheimer's disease has already been listed in the title itself, and treatment or treating has also been listed in the title itself. Right? The only two new things being talked about over here are learning ability and case control study, right? While in option B, neurological disorder, Alzheimer's disease is a kind of neurological disorder which has not been listed in the title. Randomized controlled trial has not been listed in the title, and therapeutics has also not been listed in the title, right? So this is actually a better option. Uh, yeah. So, how that will be a better option is, even if I am not working on Alzheimer's disease, I am working on some other neurodegenerative disorder, right? Even if I write neurological disorder plus therapeutic, right? I am trying to find out what is the kind of therapeutics people give to them. And according to that, I want to come up uh, with the a possible therapeutic for my kind of disorder, the disorder kind of disorder that I am working on, right? So I write neurodegenerative disorders or neurological disorders and treatments or and therapeutics, and still this one will show up, right? Because it I am not talking about Alzheimer's disease per se, but I'm looking for a neurological disorder, right? If this keyword was not written, it would only show up if Alzheimer's disease is being mentioned, right? Because the engine is trying to search based on the keywords that has been given to it, right? Either the words that are present in the title or the keywords that are given to it, right? So this would not come up if these were not the set of keywords that were present. So keywords should avoid words already used in the title, yet discuss the study, right? Uh, Also, therefore, they can easily be found when they are searched for. Then we come to question number 23, which says, which of the following statements best illustrates the concept of topical progression in scientific writing? So I hope you know what topical progression is. It is basically building on top of another, right? So option A, that is introduction, begins with a broad view of the research area, followed by a specific hypothesis and experimental methods used. The discussion section transitions from interpretation of results into the implications for future research without revisiting key findings. Abstract summarizes the entire research paper, providing a condensed version of the background, methods, results, and conclusion. Or the literature review systematically progresses from general background information to more specific studies related to research question, right? So which one is going to be the correct answer for topical progression? So since the statements are a little longer, I will give you some more time to read. I want you to look at it nicely, come to hopefully the correct answer, and so that we can discuss it. Yeah. So the answer for this one is the final option, which is literature review systematically progresses from general background. So first, the general things are being talked about, right? So this is what neurological disorders means. In neurological disorders, there are multiple different kinds of disorders. It could either be neurodevelopmental or neurodegenerative or neurodivergent, right? We are going to focus on neurodegenerative disorders over here. Under neurodegenerative disorders, Alzheimer's disease is one of the most commonly occurring or frequently reported neurodegenerative disorder, right? It affects this much of the world population. Even in India, it affects this much percentage of people, right? Also, although there have been some clinical trials, there is no cure per se for therapeutics. There is no cure per se for Alzheimer's disease. It is just a symptomatic treatment. So our study basically aims to look at alternatives of such treatments, etc., etc. Right? So over here we are beginning with what are neurological disorders. Under neurological disorders, what are the kinds of disorders that can be talked about? Which is the disorder that I want to talk about? What is known about that disorder? How many individuals does it impact? What is already known? Are there any therapeutics that are available? If they are available, what is the kind of therapeutic, strategy they use, and what is the kind of therapeutic strategy that I want to use, right? So, from what is known, from a broader general perspective, I am coming down to my question. That what was my question? That I basically want to work on Alzheimer's disease, and I want to review what is the kind of therapeutic approaches that I can use to slow down the progression of the disease, right? But that is not where I started from, right? I started from a broader perspective. So that is basically known as topical progression. Another close one in this was this. The introduction begins with a broad overview of the result, which is followed by specific hypothesis and experimental methods used, right? So it could be considered as topical progression, but the introduction itself does not talk about the methods per se, right? So this one is a better suited uh, option to this question, right? Abstract is more like a synopsis. It is not a topical progression of what is going on. It has very divergent things that it is a summary of, right? And similar for the discussions, right? Question number 24. Authors are often asked by journals to provide keywords for their manuscripts while submitting them for publication. The keywords help in a search engine find relevant papers, in indexing papers for easy search, in increasing visibility, or all of these. So, what is actually the why are keywords helpful, right? How are they helpful? Okay. So the option is all of these, right? So even if you look at the first two options, you will come to this conclusion that it is all of these because it does help search engines find relevant papers, right? If you are writing neurological disease, therapeutics, it will give you papers that are relevant to that, that have those kinds of keywords, right? If you are looking for, say, mango plant, best season to grow, something like that, it might give you studies as to different kinds of mango species and what is the best climatic condition to grow these species, etc., etc. Right? B is in indexing papers for easy search. That is true, right? You are kind of tagging them or indexing them that whenever somebody is going to type neurological, this particular paper is definitely going to show up, right? Even if it is one of the 7,000 papers that show up, it is going to show up, right? So overall, it will increase visibility, but that is actually not that was actually not going to be the first option that I would have selected, right? But since option A and B are very, very relevant, so option D by itself becomes the correct option, right? Yeah. Question number 25. It is often emphasized that the techniques section should include a detailed description of each step involved in the approach. For instance, in the case of an experimental study, the authors are required to specify the source of chemical that was used and its corresponding catalog number if it was acquired from a commercial supplier. This is to confirm that the chemical was utilized by the author, replicate experiment using identical chemical obtained from the same source, determine whether commercial supplier is a reputable manufacturer, or confirm that authors utilized research grant that was awarded to them, right? So which one is going to be the correct answer? Please. Yes. So the correct option for this one is option number B. So we have discussed similar kinds of questions earlier also. So it is definitely not because they want to confirm whether this chemical is being produced by that company, or whether that company is legit, or whether you have definitely used that chemical or not, or whether for your research agency to know whether you have utilized the fund that was given to you in these chemicals or at someplace else, right? It is basically to so that if somebody else follows similar protocol, they can basically that experiment using the identical chemical from the same source, right? That is the main purpose. So that is what is written over here. Main purpose of the method section is to allow or encourage the readers to redo the work and replicate the findings, which includes disclosing the source of the chemicals used. Right? Then option number 20, question number 26, which is one of the following options is an important consideration in drafting a good materials and methods section, right? Which one of this is correct? Good experimental design, full details of statistical tests performed, full details of softwares used in the study, or all of these. So it is very similar to what we have already, discussed earlier. So I'm sure you will be able to answer this. So we can discuss the answer straight away, which is all of these, right? So two of the options are actually same or similar, which is good experimental design. So earlier in today's class itself, or today's session itself, I have told why good experimental design is important in a materials and method section, so that some obvious queries can be avoided. And full details of statistical tests performed should definitely be given, right? Also, another new thing that you might learn from this question is that if you are using a software, right? If you are using one software to, make illustrations for your paper, right? If you are using one to analyze some part of your, data, if you are using a software just to, reference whatever has been talked about, or just to analyze some images that are given in your data, all of that has to be listed, right? So that that particular software is also well cited, and you are acknowledging them also. Even if it is a free source software or a paid software, you have to acknowledge, right? Because research has gone into developing that software itself, right? So the answer is going to be all of these. So the materials and methods section should be detailed and clear enough so that any reader knowledgeable in basic scientific techniques could replicate the study if she or he wanted to do so. Then we come to question number 7. A typical research paper comprises 4 main sections: introduction, methods, results, and discussion. Conventionally, the first draft of the paper is not always composed in sequential manner in which they appear in the article. The section that is considered less challenging to write are often written first. Using the options provided below, choose the sequence of sections suggested for beginner authors to follow while writing a research article or thesis. Right? Is it going to be B, D, A, and C, or A, then B, then C, then D, or B, then C, then A, and then D, or C, A, B, D? Which one is going to be the correct answer? Right? Yeah. So we have gone through similar kinds of questions, so we know the answer. I hope. everybody does. So it is first we can write the method section, then the results, then the introduction, and then the discussion, right? So that is the easier order to write a research paper or a thesis in, right? Because methods are something you know, right? You have it written down already. You just have to write it in a formal way and in a particular, kind of tense, in a particular kind of expression. You just need to write whatever you already have written somewhere, right? Then comes C. So you already have your data, you have done analysis for that data. You just need to put it down in a table, you need to put it down in an image panel, and you need to write about it. That is it. That comes second. Then you talk about introduction, right? Where this research idea came from, what is already known about this field, what is not known about this field, what is your hypothesis, and how are you going to solve that, right? Because all this also had already been researched about you at some point in your research journey. Then comes the discussion, right? This is the final collaboration of everything you have. You're trying to make sense of that, putting it all together, validating it with existing knowledge in the field, etc., right? So methods and results sections in that order are easier to write than the other two sections, right? Secondly, completing the results section helps the author to align the other two sections so as to highlight the importance of discovery and observation. Then we come to question number 28, which is which one of the following sections of a typical research paper is most likely to have the lowest readership? Is it the title, the abstract, the results, or the methods? So which one do you think is going to be the least read, right? Okay, so the answer actually is going to be the methods, right? So for instance, I open a research paper and I want to see that, okay, what is the kind of therapeutic that they have used? So I have read the title of all the papers, right? Based on that, I have chosen which papers I want to read. Then I read the abstract of the papers. And based on that, I choose that, okay, these are the kinds of disorders that I am also, my disorder is also kind of presenting as this disease that is being talked about. So all I am going to look up about are studies that are done in similar kinds of disorders, right? So based on abstract, I'm filtering that. Then in the abstract, I know that, okay, this is the therapeutic they have used, and they have just concluded something that this is what we see, right? So I will go and look at the figures. Okay, what is the kind of experiments they have done? What is the kind of observation that they are seeing, right? And then maybe I will read the discussion for the same, right? But methods, I will not like least number of papers. I will actually go and look at the methods only if I am stuck at some point that, okay, this is the kind of analysis I'm trying to do, but I am unable to do it. Let me go and check this paper at how that paper I should know that, okay, they had also done similar kind of experiments, so I should already have gone through their results, right? Then based on that, okay, that kind of result they had shown a bar graph over there. What were they quantifying in that bar graph? Okay, if I can just see what they were quantifying, I might be able to resolve that myself. Or maybe sometimes it happens that I don't know how they quantified this. Then only I will go to the method section and I will read about why they have done this quantification, how they have done it, whether I can do that or not. Right. So it is the most, the least read section. It has the lowest readership, method section. Among sections listed, methods will have lowest readership as only those who are interested in details might actually go and read this section. Right. So that is actually the end of the first part of the discussion, which was the major part of the discussion as well, which was to solve previous year assignments and some extra questions as well. Now there is a very short uh, presentation, another very short presentation that I have that basically discusses about how an effective title is written, right? It basically corroborates to what you have already been taught by Sir, right, in his sessions. Uh, it recapitulates the similar kind of essence. It is something that was recently published in 2021, June of 2021. It is an editorial, piece that was given by Human Nature, Human Behavior. This is a journal that had given it, and we will go and read about it, right? So there was one line that was defining the essence of this editorial piece, which is basically that titles are the first and often the only part of your research that others will read, right? So there will be some people that will only read the title. Based on that, they will know, okay, this is not what I want to read, right? So that's why they matter so much. And here's some practical advice on how to write them, right? So they are basically this journal is has compiled as to what are the practical ways of writing the title of the research papers, because they are very, very extremely important parts of your paper, right? So, what they say is that it is actually the most important part of your paper, which is already said over here. Right. Again, it has been echoed over here. Single most important part of the paper may be the title, right? The title is the most read part of a paper. We already know that, right? We have also continually gone through it, and we have revised this particular statement that yes, it is the most read part of a paper, right? For majority of the readers, title is the message of the paper, right? So whatever you have done in the paper, you are reporting in the title. That is why it is so important that the title should be succinct, accurate, and balanced, right? Also, the title serves to help direct attention into the paper, right? So it will directly tell you whether, okay, this is about Alzheimer's disease, whether it is talking about progression of disease, whether it is talking about symptoms of disease or diagnostics of disease or therapeutics of disease. It will tell you, right? So then the titles do their jobs best when they are simple, they are readable, and they are brief, right? So that is the best, how the best titles are actually written, right? It is a few of the good qualities of a good title, right? Also, humor is not something that the title needs, right? If it is there and if it is on point, it is always good, but it is not something that is essentially required in a title, right? But witty titles are frequently culturally specific or rely on references to current events that will age poorly, right? So what they are saying is that yes, if you write witty titles, some people might understand it better than others, right? So if you are writing a title which has a little sarcasm in it, so if it is going to a non-native English speaking country, right? That person or those people might not gather the essence of that sarcasm that well, as it will be captured in a native English speaking country, for instance, right? Also, what I said is that some of these witty titles will rely on references, which will be references to some current event, right? Which will not be relevant after, say, 50 years or 100 years. People might not know about that, right? Because we still refer papers that are 100 years old, right, for some studies, right, or 60 years old for some particular studies, right? Now I don't know, like I myself am around 27 years old, right? I don't know what was in going on or what was in trend in US in maybe 1960s or 1970s, right? I don't know the what was the kind of TV series that was going on over there, what is the kind of shows that people used to watch, what is the kind of, what was who was the president at that time. So if somebody had taken reference to that and titled their paper, it would be very hyped at that stage, but now it will be very difficult to, index that paper. Only when I search for a certain thing, it might not come up, or even if it does come up, I might not understand what the paper is about just by reading the title. One important example has been given over here by them, which is fantastic yeasts and where to find them, right? The hidden diversity of morphological fungal pathogens. So this particular title is a brilliant play on the title of 2016 Harry Potter movie, which was Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, right? But not every reader that's going to read this will be familiar with that reference, and people of future are unlikely to appreciate this particular reference, right? Even when a title does succeed in being hilarious, it may not serve its purpose, which is to tell people about what your paper is about, right? So, studies have suggested that funny titles don't translate into higher citations, and instead, they may even result in fewer citations than papers with more matter of fact titles. Okay, because people, researchers are more likely to read those papers, right? Maybe such catchy titled papers might be read by general audiences. Okay, let's go and see what this paper is about, but not by somebody who is specifically looking for a particular problem and how people have solved those problems, right? So it might not get cited at all, right? Also, one should avoid question-based titles, right? Although questions in titles let readers know what the topic of your title is, but they don't provide a take-home message, right? That is why it is discouraged that you pose a question-based title. Also, a title should simply be a summary of the most important findings of the paper, right? So that will help really boost your readership. Also, they conclude by saying that make sure your title contains keywords to help search engines surface your paper, right? And you can avoid unnecessary jargon that would make your title impenetrable for anybody not working on the exact same question, but who would still find your research of interest or relevance to them, right? So, that is basically the essence of how you should frame a title. You have already been talked about as to how you should look for keywords, right? So the major point of conveying this was that Nature is a big publishing house, right? So even they in their editorial paper, they have talked about what has already been taught to you, right? So this course has been running since before 2021, right? Even in 2021, they have also said the exact same thing. So these are gold standard things that are being told to you with respect to how you have to write your abstract, how you should frame a title, how you should go about writing a research paper, what is the kind of jargons that you should avoid, what is a kind of module of the paper that you should go about doing first, what you should do at the end, how you should try to frame your sentences, etc., right? So it is kind of a gold standard that has been taught, and that is what is being recapitulated by this paper that came out in 2021 as well, right? So that is going to be the end of this particular presentation as well. Let me just stop sharing my screen. Yeah. Um, with that, like, I am done with what I had to, you know, tell you about this particular week's session and the previous year questions. If at all there are any doubts, I would be happy to take them. Maybe you can raise your hands for that. Okay. If not, we'll just end this session. And thank you, everybody, for attending. The recording will also be available to you. I'll just stop recording first.